Hey, this is Notser, and we're talking aircraft carrier rework. I'm sure you've heard this many times from other people. This is my first opportunity. I've had a lot of family issues. Life is not going very well for me right now. But regardless, let's focus on the positives. We are getting something that is updating a significant portion of the game. Hopefully, it's going to increase the population, the interest in it, and the gameplay around, against, for will be more compelling overall. That's what we're all hoping for. Now, whether we're getting it, that remains to be seen. I have a lot of opinions on this, and we're going to focus on the American side. I will have a companion video for the Japanese. I feel like there's enough details here that we could just talk about the American design. We are in the Tier 6 American aircraft carrier Ranger. We're on the map Fault Line. Yes, I know the Ranger is not a Tier 6. On live, it's a Tier 7. Do I know exactly what they're doing? No, but I can infer, and they teased some British carriers, a Tier 4, a Tier 6, a Tier 8, and a Tier 10. That would lead me to believe that they intend to drop the number of carriers involved in the line from 8 down to 4. And if they do that, that allows more navies to offer potential carriers that we could, at some point in the distant future, control. I don't know that that's what they're doing, but that's what they look to be doing for the British carriers, and the British carriers are designed with the system in mind. Let's be real. Let's be completely frank. So, with all that said, there is a lot that needs to be changed, evolved, improved with this system before it is ready at all. Visually, it looks great. There's nothing you need to change visually. From an animation standpoint, the flak looks beautiful. It offers gameplay as well that you need to consider. But just the animation, the AA thickness, it looks spectacular. The aircraft flying, just wonderful. The attack runs, I love all of it. But from a gameplay standpoint, we need a lot of changes. A lot of changes. So one of the first changes that I want you guys to consider, the AA sector system. You might have seen a little bit of it on screen. Wargaming apparently is doing away with the mouse cursor selection for focus fire. That no longer exists for AA. Instead, what you're encouraged to do is just increase the AA sector's effective fighting DPS force. You'll note that my starboard side has 160% effective AA power, and my port side has only 40%, and I can switch it back and forth. But it doesn't really switch back and forth very quickly, Wargaming. 30 seconds is a really long time. 20 seconds is a really long time. You need this system to be active in combat. It needs to have dedicated hotkeys for port and starboard, or default. It needs to be incorporated in the base UI more. You might notice that the compass in the bottom left-hand corner, it sort of shows a green aura effect. That is indicating which AA sector is enhanced, but it needs to be more involved. I didn't even know this menu existed. Apparently, you access the AA sector by pressing the tilde key or O. I was using O. And that's basically all you could do, is select the AA sector and sail your ship around. That's not good enough, Wargaming. That takes a lot of strategy away from the player to consider. I really enjoyed using my mouse cursor, selecting the primary target that has yet to drop, and then immediately switching to the next dropping squadron. That was actually very sneakily quickly to control. I had no issue with it whatsoever. I want something as active as that. I'm thinking 5, maybe 10 seconds at the absolute maximum to switch the AA sector of defense, and it needs to feel more natural. It needs to feel like it's flowing into the port or starboard AA protection barrier. So it's like ramping up or ramping down. I see something like a space combat game where you're changing the energy shielding, from your front to rear, left to right, and it's sort of going from one side of the ship to the other. That would be the most appropriate design for me personally on the AA sector system. The aircraft carrier is completely different. The aircraft carrier you can no longer directly control. When your squadron is out on the map, you can only select where it moves to with the map key, the M key. They did offer an indicator on whether the aircraft carrier is detected by aircraft or ships or under attack or dots on it. That's great and all, but I can't use my damage control unless I don't have direct control over a squadron. That sounds really crappy. I can't use the heal that they've offered as an option unless I'm in direct control. And you know what I always find myself wishing is that I could go directly to my carrier, directly control it, do whatever I need to do, damage control, maneuverability, or whatever, and then go right back to my squadron. Why can't I do that, Wargaming? That one change would completely change my feelings on a lot of this. I just feel like the aircraft carrier is way too vulnerable. People will just go and focus it. It doesn't have defensive AA any longer. And the squadrons exist so long and they have so much power with dots and all that stuff. A single torpedo squadron can do enough damage, or AP bomb can attack an aircraft carrier and through the squadron's life, kill it completely. And I don't really know that's happening. It's very disconnected, and it can't be. So let's consider changing that. Please, Wargaming, please give us back the ability to directly control the carrier at any moment, so we can just do simple things like manage whether it's on fire or flooding, or whether I can heal it, or just to maybe just select it so I have a good understanding of exactly what it's going through. You know, just give us that, please, Wargaming. Now, as I'm selecting my squadrons, you might notice a couple other things on screen. So when you're in direct control of the carrier, there are 3 squadrons you can select: rockets, torpedo, dive bombers. Depending on the faction in the Navy, those have completely different variables. For the Americans, their rocket launchers are more precise and sort of more layered. You could choose between shotgun or a accurate rocket launcher, and this is probably the best thing that Wargaming has implemented sort of on accident, and I want to talk about that more. For the American torpedo, they could drop 2 torpedoes in the water, extra thick layer, but their torpedoes are regular torpedoes. They don't move particularly fast, and maybe they have a lower flood chance compared to the Japanese. For the dive bombs, they're high explosive for the Americans. Only high explosive. You can't select anything else. The Japanese are getting AP. And with their high explosive bombs, they do tons of damage, but also have a chance to light a target on fire. And because you have multiple attacks on a target, you get into the situation where the target will be flooding, he uses his damage control, and then you're still actively attacking him. And while you're doing that, you have a chance to cause a flood. And as that flood sticks on the ship, well, it sticks for, a minute. So dots are an incredible issue, and I don't think they need to exist quite in their power level. Dots, just in general, they're insane. But on my screen, in direct control, I have 4 different options. I can line up an attack by pressing the 1 key, and then you have the indicator. Based on your maneuvering, it will shrink or expand. You obviously want it to shrink for more accuracy. And you don't want to drop torpedo bombs or dive bombs or rockets where they won't land on the target. These are pretty obvious principles, and everyone knows this. You also can select a boost to your afterburner. You can call on a fighter squadron to defend you, and I want to describe those in excruciating detail and critique it. Or you can send the squadron back. Now, one issue with this system is the fighter squadron. So you can no longer directly control fighters. Instead, what you do is you are encouraged to fly your attack squadron, whatever it might be, near an enemy squadron, incoming or otherwise, use the consumable, like I just did, and I'm going to have an NPC that is following me, a fighter NPC squadron, and it will automatically attack any aircraft in the area. The animation isn't really hooked up right. It's really disconnected. Like, there's times where the fighter squadron was not even on my screen, and my entire squadron was wiped out. That needs to go. It needs to be way more active. Like, I should be able to see the fighter squadron attack me. And if I'm going to be honest with myself, I think I would like the option to control a fighter squadron and run defense. That is just a really fun thing to do. And I think you're missing something if you omit it completely, Wargaming. I get if you want to focus it more on surface attack, but I just think that if you can, offer some more fighter control for the player. I think that would be more compelling. I really like this point of view. I really enjoy attacking ships. I just want more of it across the board. I don't want fighters to be a second fiddle. And you might notice that fighters have unique consumables based on your squadron, so you're sort of encouraged to use multiple squadrons, if for no other reason, to get a fighter up in the air. Or to use Afterburner, and then use it once again, once you have the ability to call on the consumable and just speed to the target, keep them spotted. You get the idea. Fighters they're not involved enough in the gameplay. Sorry, Wargaming. I know you want it to be more of a surface game, but I want a little bit more fighter control. I think it would be more interesting. And if I can't get that, I just want it to feel like I have more fighter control in my NPC fighters. Just please, something. So all three squadrons have this sort of design where you call in your fighter, you attack, you do different style of attack, but you're just attacking surface ships. It looks cool. But in the attack, you'll note that there's a hell of a lot of flak, right? So you have different AA systems for that as well. The long range and medium range, they do flak. Lots of flak. If you've got a super powerful AA platform, well, it's going to just cover the screen in flak. And the flak is actually a AA damage aura. If you fly through it, your aircraft take damage. You're encouraged to maneuver to avoid it. You can't avoid the short range aura, it's always on. But as you're maneuvering towards the target, you avoid the flak. That's how you live. You keep going, right? We all understand how that works. I think that's okay, but I feel like the flak is a little too unavoidable. I'd like there to be more skill involved into the system. Yes, there are windows where a player can get through, but I think it needs to be a little bit more available for the player to use skill to avoid more damage. Sometimes it's just completely unavoidable, and that's even the case for 1 versus 1. I don't really know that the flak should be completely unavoidable 1 versus 1. It should definitely be there, but there should always be a way for the player to skillfully avoid taking damage from the flak. Because you're forced to take short-range damage, right? So I would really prefer if the flak felt like it was a design and a consistency that I can counter, if that makes sense. So over the course of this game, you've seen different attack patterns. The Americans have the ability to dial in the size of the squadron attacking for their rockets, and I just want to talk about this new system. So, obviously, the size of the attack is different from the overall, right? I've got a torpedo squadron with 6 torpedo bombers, but I only have 2 per attack. So it should take 3 separate attack runs before it's fully exhausted. This is great. I would love to be able to dial the number of aircraft that are committed to the attack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever the number might be that Wargaming limits. Just offer a little bit of control in dialing in the exact squadron size you want. I think that's great. Please explore that further, Wargaming. It looks like the system is easy for you. Like, you can just change a number on your end, and it will automatically build the attack run appropriately. Whether it be 2, 3, 4, whatever you name it. It just is cool. It's really cool, Wargaming. And I don't know that you meant it to be cool, or you meant that to be something that players like myself would be like, oh yeah, this is cool. I want more of this, but I want more of this. I like it. I found that every single squadron that I could change the size, I always chose the smallest attack possible because it extended out the time over target and also extended out the chance that I would have something like fire or flood on a target without damage control. I thought that was really enjoyable, and I just want to see more of that, or the accuracy of the reticle. Some of the more shotgunny, all or nothing, it was less accurate. So, I mean, that's great for those of us who don't want to spend too much time over the target. Or maybe we want to make our torpedo squadrons very precise, but our attack rockets a more just, I need it to waste a little bit of time, right? I just need to use the squadron so my torpedo squadron can reload quicker or something like that. I would love that customization, being able to dial the size of each squadron so it fit your playstyle appropriately. I think that's compelling gameplay that would reintroduce some strategy to the carrier, but it wouldn't be ridiculous strategy, right? I think that's great. I think that's really cool. And, just overall, I felt like the gameplay is definitely visually interesting. Once you learn how to attack, though, you learn how to attack. The precision needs to be there a little bit more. You might have noticed that there was a little bit of drift on the torpedo indicator, even after I already committed to dropping it. I noticed that multiple times when I was committing to the attack, and when I actually attacked, it didn't line up with the indicator whatsoever. Like, the indicator was completely useless. It needs to be more precise. I also noticed, Wargaming, that while controlling these ships, it was way too easy to farm damage. Now, in this game, I focused 100% on finishing off targets with the best possible squadron for that task, and it was more compelling than just blindly farming damage. But if you don't incentivize that, that's all everyone is ever going to do, because that's how you get the most XP, Wargaming. So we need to move away from farming damage and more on the precision bombing that aircraft carriers always offered. I hope this was interesting. Leave your thoughts in the comments. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.